welcome to In 5 Minutes. Today we'll see the difference between Mealy and Murray machine. We'll understand what is a Mealy machine and what is a Murray machine. These machines are nothing but the types of state machine depending upon the outputs. So there are two different machines depending upon the output of the state machine. First one is the Mealy state graph, in which the output is defined for a given state under the input condition. Means what? Suppose if x is equal to 0, below that the output z is stated as 0 or 1, or you can represent it as x slash z. Means for input 0 output is 1, or you can rewrite it as for input 1 output is 0. So output is defined for each change in input, whereas in the Murray state graph output is defined for the given state irrespective of the input condition. Now state means I was talking about S0, S1, S2, S3. These are the states we have seen in the last session. So irrespective of input means what? Whether x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 1, the output is fixed. Why? Because output is along with the state. Such as for state S0, output is defined as z is equal to 0. Means whatever the input conditions are, whether x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 1, if it is going to remain in S0 state, output will be 0. Or you can define as for S2, output z is equal to 1. Or simply you can write it down as S0 by 0 or S2 by 1. So depending on these outputs, the state machines are divided into two sections, Mealy and Murray. Out of which, first of all, we will see the Mealy machine. Here, let us consider this is a state graph for Mealy machine. So on this page, we are going to see the Mealy machine, or how Mealy state graph is carried out for this diagram. So there are three states, S0, S1 and S2. So we will follow as per the Mealy output, where output is along with the input. It is mentioned for the respective input conditions. So for x is equal to 0, output is defined as 0 and the state is going to remain same. If x is equal to 1, for state S0, it will move to S1, but output still will be equal to 0. For S1, if x is equal to 1, it will remain in S1, still output is equal to 0. For x is equal to 0, it will move down to state S2, where output will become 1. See, now there is a change in output from 0 to 1 as the input changes, x is equal to 0. While traveling from S2 to S0, both way, whether input x is equal to 0 or 1, it will go to state S0. But what about output? Output see, z is equal to 0 and 1 respectively. Means what? If x is equal to 0, while going from S2 to S0, output will be 0. And if x is equal to 1, output will be equal to 1. So there are three states, S0, S1, S2. So to determine three states, we require two state variables. So A and B we have taken, to which S0 will corresponds to 0, 0, S1 corresponds to 0, 1, S2 corresponds to 1, 0, and S3 corresponds to 1, 1. We are not using this state in this Mealy graph.